I need to make love. Don't move. The giant widow meets a lonely rancher. What he does shocks all. The sun over Red Mesa 9 was always too big and too bright. It rose slowly, like it was thinking about whether it really wanted to be in the sky that day. The land below it stretched wide and empty, painted in red sand, dark rocks, and long shadows from strange, twisted plants that looked like they had grown out of old stories instead of soil. Caleb Hart stood near the fence line of his ranch, one hand resting on a metal post, the other shading his eyes. He had lived on this world for 6 years now, 6 quiet years. That was how he liked it. Behind him, a herd of gene beasts moved slowly across the field. They were large, thick-skinned animals bred to survive the harsh planet. They looked like a mix between cows and armored lizards, and they made low, rumbling sounds as they walked. Caleb had raised most of them himself. He talked to them sometimes, even though he knew they did not understand. It still felt better than talking to nobody at all. His house was small and simple. One floor, metal walls, solar panels on the roof, a water tank in the back. It was not much, but it was home. Caleb was just about to turn back inside when the sky changed. At first he thought it was a cloud, but Red Mesa 9 did not have clouds. Then he heard it. A deep shaking sound, like the sky itself was tearing open. He looked up. A dark shape burned across the blue, trailing fire and smoke. It moved fast, too fast to be a normal ship. It spun once, twice, and then slammed into the land several kilometers away. The ground shook so hard that Caleb nearly fell over. The gene beasts panicked. They bellowed and ran, kicking up clouds of red dust. Caleb stared at the rising smoke on the horizon. His heart beat fast in his chest. Nobody ever came out here. That was the point of living on the edge of human space. He hesitated only a moment. Then he grabbed his old rifle, climbed onto his rugged ground bike, and drove toward the crash. The land between his ranch and the wreck was rough. Rocks, dry riverbeds, and sharp plants that scraped against the bike's sides. The closer he got, the hotter the air felt. The smoke rose in a tall, black line that marked the sky. When he finally reached the crash site, he slowed down. The ship was not human. It was long and curved, like a blade half buried in the ground. The metal was dark and smooth, marked with glowing lines that pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. One side of the ship was torn open, and small fires burned around it. Caleb cut the engine and stepped off the bike. He raised his rifle just in case. That was when he saw her. She stood near the broken hull, tall enough that her head nearly touched the edge of the ship. She had 4 arms, long and strong, and legs built like stone pillars. Her skin was a deep blue-gray, marked with faint glowing patterns across her shoulders and face. Her eyes were bright like polished silver. She turned toward him slowly. Caleb froze. The stories he had heard in space stations and bars rushed through his mind. Stories about giant warrior species, about aliens who crushed enemies without thinking. About people who never came back. The giant woman looked at him, her eyes scanning him from head to toe. Her posture was tense, like she was ready to fight or fall at any second. Then she spoke. Her voice was deep but not loud. It carried across the broken land clearly. I need to make love, don't move. Caleb's brain stopped working. His heart felt like it dropped into his boots. He stood there, staring at her, his hands tight around the rifle. I what? He said before he could stop himself. The giant took one slow step forward. The ground shook under her foot. I am Vyerxer of the Skybound clans, she said. My mate is dead, my ship is broken, I cannot survive this world alone. Caleb swallowed. He did not lower the rifle, but he did not raise it either. I think, he said carefully, we might not be talking about the same thing. Vyerxa tilted her head slightly. The glowing patterns on her face shifted. Your stance shows fear, not acceptance, she said. Did I speak the phrase wrong? Caleb took a slow breath. The heat, the smoke, the towering alien in front of him, it all felt unreal. I'm human, he said. When we hear make love, it usually means something different. Her eyes widened just a little. Then your kind uses sacred words for casual acts, she said. Strange. In my people's tongue, it means to form a life bond, a promise to protect and be protected. Caleb blinked. Oh, he said, that's very different. For a moment, they just stood there, staring at each other. Vyerx's shoulders slumped slightly. The tension in her body faded, replaced by something that looked a lot like exhaustion. My mate died defending refugees, she said. Hunters chase me now. I came here because no signals reached this world. I thought I would find either safety or an honorable end. Caleb felt something twist in his chest. He looked at the broken ship, the empty land, the smoke drifting into the sky. Then he did something that surprised even himself. He lowered the rifle. "Well," he said, "I don't do life bonds. But I do water, food, and a place to sit down." Vyerxa stared at him. "You offer shelter," she said slowly, "without demand." "Yeah," Caleb replied, "that's kind of our thing sometimes." She took another step forward, then stopped, as if waiting for him to change his mind. Caleb gestured back toward his bike. "My place is about 20 minutes that way," he said. "It's not fancy, but it's standing." Vyerxa looked back at her ship, then at the sky, then at Caleb. She nodded. The ride back to the ranch was slow. Vyerxa walked beside the bike, her long strides covering ground easily. Caleb kept glancing at her, half expecting her to disappear or attack or do something that would wake him up from this strange dream. When they reached the ranch, the gene beasts had calmed down. They stared at the giant visitor with wide, dark eyes. Vyerxa looked at them in return. "They are gentle," she said. "Most days," Caleb replied. Inside the house, Caleb poured water into the largest container he had. Vyerxa knelt to drink, careful not to hit her head on the ceiling. The way she handled the cup, slow and respectful, made something in Caleb ease. As the sun began to set, the sky turned orange and gold. Shadows stretched across the land. Vyerxa sat outside, watching the horizon. "This world is quiet," she said. "Yeah," Caleb replied, sitting on the step beside her. "That's why I came here." She looked down at him. "Your kind confuses me," she said. "You stand small, but you do not hide." Caleb gave a small smile. "I guess we just get tired of running." Far above them, unseen, a small light blinked in the darkening sky. The hunters had found the trail. The night on Red Mesa 9 came slowly, like the world was careful not to rush into darkness. The last light of the sun painted the land in deep orange and soft purple. The strange plants around Caleb's ranch glowed faintly, their thin leaves shining like quiet stars rooted in the ground. Caleb sat on the small metal step outside his house, holding a cup of warm drink in both hands. Vyerxa sat a short distance away, her long legs folded beneath her, her tall frame still and alert. Even at rest, she looked like a statue made for a story instead of a person who could feel tired, sad, or afraid. The air was quiet but not peaceful. Caleb felt it in his chest. Something was coming. He looked up at the sky. The stars had started to appear one by one. Somewhere out there, beyond what his eyes could see, Vyerxa's hunters were moving closer. Vyerxa broke the silence first. "You did not ask why they hunt me," she said. Caleb took a slow sip of his drink. "I figured you'd tell me when you were ready," he said. She studied him for a moment, as if trying to understand how someone so small could be so calm. "My people are called the Skybound," she said. "We travel in great fleets. We protect weaker worlds. Not everyone likes that." Caleb nodded. "Yeah, I know a few folks back in human space who don't like being told what's right either." Vyerxa's glowing markings pulsed softly. "The hunters are not one people," she continued. "They are many species who trade in fear. They sell captured warriors, refugees, and leaders. They profit from broken worlds." Caleb's jaw tightened. "So they're slavers," he said. "Yes," Vyerxa replied. Caleb looked out at the empty land. He had come to Red Mesa 9 to get away from wars, politics, and big choices. He wanted quiet. He wanted simple days and long nights. And now, sitting in front of him, was a giant alien widow being hunted across the stars. Life had a strange sense of humor. Inside the house, a small alarm beeped softly. Caleb stood up. "That'll be my old scanner," he said. "It's not military grade, but it can see big ships coming from far out." Vyerxa rose with him, careful and slow, as if she did not want to break the fragile little building just by standing too close. Inside, the scanner screen glowed with soft blue light. Caleb's heart sank. 3 faint dots blinked near the edge of the display. "They're not in orbit yet," he said, "but they're on their way." Vyerxa closed her eyes for a moment. "Then my time here is short," she said. "I will not bring war to your home." Caleb turned to her. "What are you saying?" "I will leave," she said. "I will walk into the wastes. They will follow me. Your land will be safe." Caleb stared at her. "That's a bad plan," he said. "It is an honorable one," she replied. Caleb ran a hand through his hair. "I didn't offer you water and a seat by my fire just so you could walk off and get yourself killed," he said. Vyerxa looked surprised. "You owe me nothing," she said. "Maybe," Caleb replied, "but I don't like the idea of handing someone over to slavers just because it's easier." Vyerxa stepped closer. The ceiling lights reflected in her silver eyes. You are one human, she said. They are fleets. Caleb gave a small, tired smile. Yeah, he said. I've heard that before. He walked over to a dusty old console in the corner of the room. It was connected to a long-range transmitter he had built from spare parts and old station tech. He mostly used it to send messages to supply ships and nearby colonies. Tonight he set it to open broadcast. Vyerxa watched him, confused. What are you doing? She asked. Calling for help, Caleb said. He typed in a simple message. No big speech, no fancy words. Just the truth. Human ranch on Red Mesa 9. Alien refugee under protection. Slaver fleet incoming. If you can hear this and you care, now's the time. He hit send. The message shot into the dark sky, racing across space in all directions. Vyerxa stared at him. You believe they will come, she said. Caleb shrugged. Some will ignore it, some won't believe it, but humans have a funny habit, he said. When someone says, I need help, a few of us tend to show up. The night grew colder. They went back outside and sat near the small heat unit Caleb used to warm the air around the house. The gene beasts lay down in the field, their heavy bodies rising and falling as they slept. Vyerxa told him about her mate. His name had been Torvak. He had been a fleet guardian, strong and proud. He had stood at the front of a refugee convoy when the hunters attacked. He had given his life to buy time for ships full of families and children to escape. Caleb listened without interrupting. He believed the universe could be better, Vyerxa said, even when it showed him it could be cruel. Caleb nodded slowly. Sounds like someone I would have liked, he said. Above them, the stars shifted as distant ships moved. Hours passed, then the scanner beeped again. Caleb checked it and let out a breath he didn't know he had been holding. New dots appeared on the screen, more than 3. Vyerxa leaned closer. These signals, she said, they are human. Caleb smiled, real and wide. Looks like I wasn't the only one awake tonight. One by one, ships dropped into orbit. Old freighters, small defense craft, even a few ships that still carried the markings of human military fleets from wars long past. They formed a loose line between Red Mesa 9 and the incoming hunters. Vyerxa watched the sky in silence. Why, she asked softly, why would they come for someone they do not know? Caleb thought for a moment. Maybe, he said, they heard someone say, this isn't right, and decided to agree. The first hunter ships appeared as dark shapes against the stars. They moved in perfect formation, cold and confident. A human ship sent a message across open channels. This is human-controlled space. Turn back. The hunters replied with silence. Caleb felt the ground tremble as the first warning shots fired far above the planet, flashes of light dancing across the sky like silent lightning. Vyerxa stood tall, her posture proud and strong. My people will hear of this, she said. They will remember what you did. Caleb looked up at the battle forming over his quiet ranch world. I didn't do it for stories, he said. I just didn't want you to walk into the dark alone. The sky above Red Mesa 9 burned with light as the first real shots were fired. The sky over Red Mesa 9 no longer looked like a sky. It was filled with light, motion, and silent power. Bright lines crossed the stars as ships moved into place. Small flashes appeared far above the planet, like distant storms trapped in space instead of clouds. Caleb stood outside his house, his boots planted in the red sand. The warm air from the heat unit brushed against his back, but he barely felt it. His eyes were locked on the sky. Vyerxa stood beside him, taller than the roof of the house, her 4 arms held close to her body. The glowing patterns on her skin pulsed faster now, like a second heartbeat. The human ships formed a wide, uneven line. Some were clean and sharp, built for defense. Others were old cargo haulers with metal plates welded onto their sides and weapons bolted where storage crates used to be. They did not look like a proper fleet, but they were there. The hunter ships moved forward in perfect formation. They were dark and smooth, shaped like long blades. Their movement was calm and steady, as if they already believed the fight was over. A new message echoed across open channels, strong and clear. This is not your world, a hunter voice said. Step aside. A human voice answered, rough and steady. It is today. The first real clash lit up the sky. Light burst across the stars as energy beams crossed paths. Caleb felt the sound through the ground, a deep vibration that made the metal walls of his house hum softly. He looked at Vyerxa. Do you want to go inside? He asked. She shook her head. I will not hide while others stand for me, she said. Above them, a small human ship darted forward, fast and sharp. It weaved between two larger hunter vessels, drawing their fire away from the main line. The sky flashed as the hunter ships turned to follow it. Caleb clenched his fists. "That one's brave," he muttered. Vyerxa tilted her head. "Or loyal," she said. The battle spread out across the sky. The human ships did not fight in perfect lines. They moved in groups, breaking apart and coming back together, covering each other when one fell back or took damage. It looked less like an army, more like a pack. Inside the house, the scanner beeped again. Caleb stepped in quickly and checked the screen. New signals appeared, dropping into orbit from the far side of the planet. More human ships. Some came from nearby colonies. Others came from places Caleb had only heard about in old news reports. Names from past wars and distant systems appeared on the display. Vyerxa followed him inside, bending low to fit through the door. "They keep coming," she said, her voice filled with something close to wonder. Caleb nodded. "Yeah," he said softly, "we're stubborn like that." The hunters changed tactics. Several of their ships broke away and moved toward the planet, heading straight for Red Mesa 9. Vyerxa stiffened. "They are coming for me," she said. Caleb looked at the scanner, then at the door, then back at her. "Looks like it," he said. He walked to a small locker near the wall and opened it. Inside were old tools, spare parts, and a few pieces of protective gear he used when working with dangerous machines. He pulled out a simple armored vest and handed it to Vyerxa. "It's not made for someone your size," he said, "but it might help a little." Vyerxa took it carefully, like it was something valuable instead of a rough piece of human equipment. "You protect even when you cannot win," she said. "Your kind is very strange." Caleb gave a small smile. "Yeah," he said, "we get that a lot." The ground bike still sat outside. Caleb climbed onto it, and Vyerxa walked beside him as they moved away from the house, toward a small rise in the land that gave a clear view of the sky. The hunter ships grew larger as they came closer. Their dark shapes blocked out stars as they passed overhead. A human ship cut across their path, firing warning shots. One of the hunters turned, and a bright flash filled the air. The human ship spun, smoke trailing behind it, but it kept flying. Caleb let out a breath he had been holding. "They're tough," he said. Vyerxa watched the damaged ship retreat behind the human line. "They fight for each other," she said, "not for victory alone." One of the hunter ships descended lower, its shadow passing over the land like a moving night. A voice boomed across the air, amplified and cold. "Vyerxa of the Skybound," it said, "come with us and this world will be spared." Vyerxa stepped forward, her tall frame clear against the red sand. "I will not be taken," she said, her voice strong. "And this world has given me shelter. You will not touch it." Caleb moved to stand beside her. The hunter ship paused. Then a new voice cut in, this one human, broadcast across every channel. "This world has a name," the voice said, "and it has people on it. You don't get to decide what happens here." The sky erupted again as human ships surged forward, pushing back the hunters before they could get closer to the ground. The fight grew fierce, but it was not wild. The humans moved with purpose, guiding the battle away from the planet, away from the ranch, away from the sleeping gene beasts and the small metal house in the dust. Vyerxa watched, her eyes shining. "They protect even the land," she said, "not just the people." Caleb nodded. "Home is a big deal to us," he said. Time passed in strange waves. Sometimes the sky was filled with light and motion. Sometimes it went quiet, the ships holding their positions, waiting for the next move. At last, the hunters began to fall back. One by one, their ships turned away, retreating into the dark space beyond the planet's reach. The human ships did not chase them far. They held the line, steady and firm, until the last hunter's signal faded from the scanner. Silence returned to the sky. Caleb realized his hands were shaking. He shoved them into his pockets and let out a long breath. Vyerxa lowered her arms. The glowing patterns on her skin dimmed slightly. "They are gone," she said. "For now," Caleb replied. The human ships remained in orbit like quiet guards in the night. A message came through the console, this one direct. "This is Captain Rhea Collins of the freighter Dawn's Path," the voice said. "You the one who sent that call for help?" Caleb pressed the reply button. "Yeah," he said, "that was me." There was a short pause. "Hell of a way to spend a quiet night," the captain said. "You and your guest okay down there?" Caleb looked at Vyerxa. "We're standing," he said. "Thanks to you." "You're welcome," the captain replied. "We'll stay a while. Make sure they don't get any ideas about coming back." The message cut off. Caleb turned to Vyerxa. Looks like you've got some neighbors in the sky, he said. Vyerxa looked up at the human ships, her expression something between respect and awe. My people will sing of this, she said. Not of a battle, but of a promise kept by strangers. Caleb shrugged. Just another night on the edge of nowhere, he said. They walked back to the house together. The gene beasts stirred as they passed, lifting their heads and making low, calm sounds. Inside, Caleb poured more water and handed a container to Vyerxa. She took it, then paused. In my culture, she said, to stand beside someone in the face of capture is to share their fate. You did that for me? Caleb leaned against the wall. Guess that makes us stuck with each other for a bit, he said. Vyerxa gave a deep, soft sound that might have been laughter. Then I will stay, she said, not as a burden, as a guard. Caleb looked out the small window at the human ships shining in the sky like distant stars. Yeah, he said, I think I could get used to that. Outside, Red Mesa 9 returned to its quiet state. The strange plants glowed softly. The wind moved across the sand. The stars watched in silence, but the world was no longer alone. The morning light came slowly over Red Mesa 9, soft and pale as it touched the red sand. The wind moved gently, carrying the smell of dust and dry plants across the ranch. For the first time in days, Caleb Hart could breathe without the weight of worry pressing on him. Or at least, that's what he told himself. Vyerxa stood near the edge of the property, her 4 arms folded across her chest, her tall frame outlined against the pale sky. The glowing patterns on her skin pulsed softly, steady and calm, like a heartbeat that matched the rhythm of the land. She watched the horizon, not with fear, but with the kind of attention a predator gives to the world around it. Caleb stepped out of his house, carrying 2 cups of warm drink. One was for him, one for Vyerxa. He held hers out carefully, and she took it with one of her massive hands, bringing it to her lips without spilling a drop. You're quiet this morning, Caleb said, taking a sip of his own drink. Vyerxa's eyes, silver and reflective, turned toward him. I am learning the ways of patience, she said. Your kind does not rush every moment with fear. It is new to me. Caleb chuckled softly. You get used to it, or you don't. There's no in-between on a place like this. They drank in silence for a few minutes, watching the red hills stretch into the distance. The previous night's battle still left its mark in the air. Tiny flashes of light blinked far above as the human ships stayed in orbit, scanning for any returning hunters. The sky, once threatening, now seemed calm, almost protective. Vyerxa lowered her hands. You risked much for me, she said quietly. Your people could have ignored my call, many would have, Caleb shrugged. Not all. Some of us don't ignore someone in trouble, especially when it's clear that person can't defend themselves alone. I thought your species was weak, Vyerxa said, her voice almost incredulous. Small, fragile, slow to act. Caleb raised an eyebrow. Fragile, maybe, slow, depends on the situation, weak, you have no idea. She studied him, tilting her head. Her glowing patterns shifted faintly as she considered his words. And yet you did not fight for glory or profit or honor, she said. You acted for a stranger, that is remarkable. Caleb looked out across the open land. It's not about glory, it's about knowing what's right. You don't leave someone alone when you can help. Vyerxa stepped closer, her massive shadow falling over him. Your people are strange, she said softly. I will tell my clans about this. They will not believe it. A small creature like you standing against a fleet to protect me, a giant. Caleb smiled faintly. You don't have to believe it, you just have to live it. They were quiet again, listening to the soft sounds of the ranch. The gene beasts moved slowly, grazing in the distance. Even in their presence, the air felt calm, almost sacred. A low hum reached them from above. Caleb's eyes narrowed. The human ships were signaling again. He picked up the old scanner from inside and watched the screen light up. Small blinking dots appeared in the distance. They're back, Vyerxa said softly. Hunters, Caleb's jaw tightened. Not for long, he said. The hunters were cautious now. They approached in a wide formation, not daring to come too close to the human fleet. Their dark, sleek ships glinted in the light of the twin suns, but they moved slower than the night before. Vyerxa stepped in front of Caleb. I will not run, she said. If they wish to fight, they will fight me. Caleb placed a hand lightly on her arm. You don't have to do it alone, he said. Not now. The human ships adjusted their positions, creating a barrier between the ranch and the incoming threat. Small energy pulses fired off at the hunters, warning them to stay away. One of the hunters spoke across open channels. Vyerxa, step aside, you cannot win. A human voice answered back, clear and calm. You are wrong, you are not facing one, you are facing many. The hunters fired again. The sky lit up with brief flashes of energy far above the land. Caleb and Vyerxa crouched behind a small rise, watching the battle unfold. It is different when you see them fight for you, Vyerxa said. Not for power, not for greed. But because they choose to, Caleb nodded. Humans can be stubborn that way. We fight for what matters, not what's easy. Above them, the battle became more intense. The human ships moved like a single organism, weaving and dodging, attacking and retreating, protecting each other while keeping the hunters at bay. Vyerxa stepped closer to Caleb, her massive hand brushing against his shoulder. I did not know your kind could be so, she paused, searching for the word. United. They don't always show it, Caleb said, but when someone needs them, that unity appears. It's not about size or strength, it's about will. The hunters tried a new tactic. They split into smaller groups, trying to isolate individual human ships. For a moment, it looked as though they might succeed. One human ship was hit, spinning out of control, smoke trailing behind it. Caleb felt his stomach tighten. But another human ship darted forward, taking the hunters' attention and giving the first ship a chance to recover. Vyerxa's eyes widened. They work together, she said. Even when separated, they remain a force. I have never seen such coordination. Caleb nodded. That's how we survive. Alone, we're fragile. Together, we're something else. The hunters realized they could not break the human line. Slowly, cautiously, they began to fall back, retreating into the dark void beyond the planet. Vyerxa breathed out slowly. They retreat, she said. They will not challenge your kind again, not today. Caleb leaned against the rise, letting the tension drain from his body. For now, he said, Vyerxa's glowing markings dimmed as she relaxed. Your world, this land, it is small. But it holds more courage than entire fleets I have known. Caleb gave a small, tired smile. Maybe, but it's not just me. It's everyone who answered my call. That's what makes it strong. The human ships remained in orbit, scanning the skies, ensuring the hunters would not return too soon. Caleb and Vyerxa watched them in silence, feeling a strange kind of peace settle over the ranch. Finally, Vyerxa stepped closer, her massive form casting a shadow over the small house. I owe you, she said. Not just for your courage, but for your kindness. You offered safety without expectation. That is rare. Caleb shook his head. No debts. We don't keep score on what's right and wrong. We just act. Vyerxa's eyes shimmered with the soft silver light of her species. Then I will stay, she said, not as a burden, but as an ally, as a friend. Caleb felt a strange warmth in his chest. I think I could get used to that, he said. The twin suns rose higher, bathing Red Mesa 9 in golden light. The gene beasts stirred, grazing peacefully. The ranch looked like any other day, except the air felt heavier with unspoken trust, with the memory of battles fought and lives spared. Caleb turned toward Vyerxa. You'll need to eat, he said, and I have food that doesn't burn your throat off. She gave a faint sound that might have been amusement. I will try it, she said. As they walked back toward the house, Caleb realized something he had not thought about in years. Life on Red Mesa 9 had been quiet, lonely, and predictable. Now it was loud, dangerous, and filled with unexpected bonds, and somehow he liked it. For Vyerxa, it was a revelation. She had seen civilizations rise and fall, fleets destroyed, and warriors lost. Yet here, on this quiet red planet, she had found a species that fought not for conquest, but for protection. She had found something she had never truly known, trust. Together, they reached the small house. Caleb opened the door and Vyerxa stepped inside, careful not to crush anything. The warmth of the house welcomed them, small but comforting. Caleb poured water into a container for her. She drank slowly, watching him with quiet appreciation. Your people, she said, they are different from what I expected, not just strong but wise, not just brave but united. They fight not because they have to, but because they choose to, Caleb shrugged. We're not perfect, but when it matters, we stand together. Outside, the wind moved across the red plains, and the gene beasts stirred. The battle was over for now, but the ranch, the land, and the bond formed that night had changed forever. Vyerxa stood tall, her glowing patterns softening, as if the peace of the ranch had seeped into her very bones. She looked at Caleb, and for the first time since her mate had died, she felt safe. Caleb looked back at her. For the first time in years, he felt connected to the larger universe, not as a small, lonely man, but as someone part of something bigger. The human ships remained in orbit, silent watchers in the sky, ready to defend if needed. But for now, Red Mesa 9 was quiet again. Not empty, not alone, the sky over Red Mesa 9 was calm, though it had seen battles in the days before. The twin suns hung higher now, spilling gold and red across the plains. The land looked peaceful, but Caleb Hart knew better. Peace was never permanent. It had to be earned. Vyerxa stood at the edge of the ranch, tall and alert. Her glowing patterns pulsed softly like a heartbeat, marking a calm after the storm. She had spent her life fighting and running, but here she was learning something she had never known: trust. Caleb walked beside her, carrying a cup of warm drink in one hand and an old scanner in the other. He had spent the morning checking the perimeter, making small repairs to fences, and ensuring that the gene beasts were calm. Everything was quiet now, but he knew it could change at any moment. "You've stayed," he said quietly, glancing at her. Vyerx's silver eyes met his. "I promised," she said. "Not as a burden, but as someone who stands with you. You saved me, and I will honor that." "I will not leave," Caleb smiled faintly. "I wasn't expecting you to stay this long," he admitted. "You could have left and walked into the wastes." "I do not leave those who offer me safety," she said. "It is strange for me, but not unpleasant." They walked toward the small rise overlooking the plains. The ranch stretched below them, red earth and twisted plants extending to the horizon. The gene beasts grazed slowly, their movements calm and measured. Caleb paused to watch them, feeling a sense of pride. "You've got a lot of patience," Vyerxa said softly. "It is a rare trait. Your people, they do not often show it." Caleb shrugged. "We do when it matters, not all the time, but when it counts, we act." Vyerxa looked out at the horizon. "I have seen empires rise and fall. I have seen fleets destroyed, but never have I seen a species fight for a stranger simply because it is right." Caleb shifted his weight. "It's not about strangers, it's about choices. You make the choice to act, that's what matters." The wind moved across the red plains, carrying the scent of dust and dry plants. The silence was heavy, but it was not empty. It was alive with possibilities. The scanner beeped softly. Caleb checked it. A small signal appeared, blinking faintly on the display. He frowned. "Hunters," Vyerxa said quietly. "Are they returning?" Caleb shook his head. "No, not yet. This is something else." He adjusted the settings, tracking the signal. "It's human. I think it's one of the freighters from the fleet. They're sending a message." A voice came through the console, calm and firm. "Caleb Hart, this is Captain Rhea Collins of the Dawn's Path. We're monitoring the sector. Your actions have been reported. We want to offer continued support. Is that necessary?" Caleb looked at Vyerxa. "I think it is," he said. "Not for me, but for the land. It's worth protecting." The captain's voice continued. "We'll remain in orbit. Our crew will assist if needed. We also want to make sure that your guest, Vyerxa of the Skybound, is safe and accounted for." Vyerxa's eyes widened slightly. "They protect even beyond my need," she said softly. "Not for reward, not for recognition, but because they choose to." Caleb nodded. "That's humans." The days passed slowly, but each moment was filled with small lessons. Caleb taught Vyerxa about human tools, machines, and the ways of the land. She, in turn, taught him about her people, the Skybound, their ships, their codes of honor, and the meaning behind the phrases that had startled him when they first met. One evening after the suns dipped low, Vyerxa stood on a rise overlooking the ranch. Caleb joined her, carrying 2 cups of warm drink. He handed one to her. "Do you ever regret staying?" he asked quietly. Vyerxa considered it. "I do not. This world, this people, it is unlike any I have known. You are not as strong as my fleet, not as fast or armored, but you are brave, and your courage is contagious." Caleb smiled faintly. "That's a kind thing to say." "It is the truth," she said. "I will never forget what you and your people have done. Not just for me, but for the principle that life can be defended without domination, that someone's safety matters because they are valued." Caleb glanced at the horizon. "It's not perfect. There will always be danger. But if we choose to act together, we can hold it at bay. That's what matters." Vyerxa's silver eyes met his. "Then I will stand beside you, always." The wind moved through the red plains. The gene beasts stirred, lifting their heads and making low sounds that echoed across the land. Caleb and Vyerxa stood together, not as master and guest, not as alien and human, but as equals united by choice and respect. In orbit, the human ships remained. They were not just watchers, but guardians, a silent promise that Red Mesa 9 would not face the darkness alone. Caleb felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, but it no longer felt heavy. It was balanced by trust, by companionship, and by the knowledge that he did not have to face the universe alone. Vyerxa lowered her hands. "Your species is unpredictable," she said, "and yet admirable. I will carry this lesson back to my people. They will learn that strength is not only in arms, but in will, in loyalty, and in the choices to act without expectation." Caleb nodded. "Maybe that's the best lesson anyone can learn." The sky darkened slightly as the twin suns set. Stars appeared one by one, their cold light distant but certain. The ranch, the land, and the bond formed there had changed forever. It was no longer just Caleb's home. It was a symbol, a place where courage, trust, and choice stood stronger than fear. Vyerxa turned her gaze to the horizon, her glowing patterns dimmed to a gentle pulse. "I will stay," she said, "not because I must, but because I choose to. This land, this people, they have shown me a strength I have never known." Caleb smiled faintly. "And we'll keep showing it, for as long as it matters." Above, the human ships moved quietly, maintaining their watch, ensuring that Red Mesa 9 remained a place of safety. Below, the gene beasts grazed, their calm presence a reminder of the life that continued even in the shadow of war. Vyerxa knelt slightly, placing a massive hand on the red sand. "I will remember this moment," she said softly. "The day I learned that even the smallest creature can hold the universe in their choices." Caleb put a hand on the small ridge beside her. "We all can," he said. "When it matters, when we decide it matters, we can change things." The stars grew brighter as the night deepened. The wind moved across the plains, carrying the soft sound of life in the distance. Caleb and Vyerxa stood together, silent but united. The universe was wide and dangerous, but for now, Red Mesa 9 was safe. And the promise they had formed, of trust, protection, and courage, would echo far beyond the Red Plains. It would reach other worlds, other species, a story of humans who fought for a stranger and an alien who learned to trust. Vyerxa straightened, her tall form silhouetted against the stars. "We will stand together," she said. "No matter what comes." Caleb nodded. "Yeah, together." The twin suns had set, leaving the land bathed in silver and blue light. For the first time in many years, Caleb Hart felt the universe was not an endless stretch of loneliness. It was full of possibility, of connection, of courage that spread farther than he could see. And as he and Vyerxa watched the stars, the world seemed larger, not more dangerous, but filled with promise. Red Mesa 9 was no longer quiet, but it was alive. It was defended. It was home. And Caleb Hart knew that whatever came next, they would face it side by side, humans and skybound, friends and allies, united by choice and courage, holding the edge of the universe with steady hands. The land was safe. The skies were calm. The promise of protection stretched across the plains and into the stars, carrying the story of a lonely rancher and a giant widow who learned to trust.